Stop into any stamping or scrapbooking store and you'll find aisles of patterned paper covered with flock. And although these papers are quite beautiful, some of them can cost over $2 a sheet. But with a little flocking powder, some score tape, and a piece of cardstock, you can create a beautiful flocked paper in exactly the colors you want for way less. Let me show you the tools and products you need for this technique. First, you're going to need some flock, and I'm using the Doodlebug flock. These come in a pack of 12 different colors, and then I like to put them in one of these little hinged window tins because they fit so nicely in there and I can see exactly what's in them without having to open the box. Then you're going to need some score tape, and I'm using two sizes for this technique. I'm using the 1/8 of an inch and the 1/4 of an inch. You're going to need some scissors, a piece of cardstock, and I'm using some of the Gina K Designs Wild Dandelion cardstock, and I've cut it to 3.5 inches by 5 inches. You're going to need some sort of anti-static pad, and I'm using the one that we carry at GinaKDesigns.com. It just removes static and oil from the surface of your cardstock. And then you're going to need some sort of grid. Now I like to use my score mat for this technique because the score mat has all of the measurements, and because I want to do some stripes, it'll help me space my stripes out just the way I want. So I'm going to start off with just a little piece of score tape right on the back of this piece of cardstock because I want to hold it into place. And I'm going to place the piece of cardstock on an angle with one point on the 6-inch line and the other point on the 6-inch line at the bottom. So you can see that I have one point here on the 6-inch line and one point down here on the bottom 6-inch line. My next step is to take some of the 1/8 of an inch score tape, and I'm going to begin to create a striped pattern on top of my piece of cardstock. And you're really going to appreciate using the score tape for this because you can just tear it and you don't need to cut it. So I'm going to start off by placing my first strip of score tape. Actually, I'm going to turn my score mat here so my stripes, my lines can go in this direction, sideways. And my very first piece is going to go right next to that 6-inch line. Let me reposition that. So it'll go right, and I'll start it up there, and then I'll bring it down to this 6-inch line down here. There we go. So that's my first stripe. And I'm going to go to the next 1-inch mark, which is the 5-inch line, and I'm going to do the same thing. And to make sure that it's perfectly straight, I'm actually positioning that score tape just along the side of the black line. I'm not covering the black line, so this way I can see that it's perfectly straight. I'm going to do another one down here on the 4-inch line, like that. I'm going to do one here on the 7-inch line. Now you can see this one I actually tore a little bit short. It still goes over the edge, so that's okay. But you want to make sure that you do give yourself enough room to grab it on both sides. So when you're first trying this for the first time, maybe make this piece a little bit longer. Okay, so now I'm putting this one on the 7-inch line. And one on the 8-inch line. So there, now I have my thin stripes, and I'm pressing them down hard onto the cardstock, but not quite as hard onto the score mat, because I want to make sure they really stick. Now I'm going to move to my 1/2-inch tape. I'm sorry, my 1/4-inch tape. And I'm going to use the 1/2-inch lines going down for my 1/4-inch score tape. So my first one's going to go on that white 1/2-inch line. There. I'm going to put one on this 1/2-inch line for the corner. There. My next one is going to go on this 1/2-inch line. And that one's at 5.5 inches. Like that. Next one at the 6.5 inch line. Next one at the 7.5 inch line. And now I'm going to put one at the 8.5 inch line. And then because this is sticking out a little bit, it looks like I could put a little something extra in there, I'm going to add one more 1/8 inch piece. I'm just going to put that right on the edge there, just to make another stripe. Now I'm going to carefully peel this up with all of my stripes on it. And then, using a pair of Cutter Bee scissors or any good sharp quality scissors, I'm going to trim right along the sides and get rid of all the excess that's hanging off the edge. So now you can see I've trimmed off all the excess around the perimeter, and I'm just going to press down one more time to make sure that they're nice and tight to the cardstock, so that when I peel them off, none of the tape will peel up with it. Okay. And now I'm going to take my anti-static pad and I'm going to rub that or pat it all over the surface of the cardstock. Now the reason I'm doing that now and not after I take the tape off is because if the tape gets covered with it, nothing will stick to the tape. But I don't want my flock attaching itself to any of the sticky stuff. So my next step is to get a piece of scratch paper for underneath, and then I'm going to start by peeling off all of the thin stripe pieces, the little protective paper that's on top of that score tape, just on the thin stripes. And once you're completely done flocking, if there's any little imperfections, you can always retrim around the perimeter just a little bit to make it perfect. But it should look pretty good.